Bible Stories with Miss Cortney. Episode 3. Jesus' Disciples. Hi friends, I'm Miss Cortney and I am so glad you're here. Welcome to episode 3 of Bible Stories with Miss Cortney. If you haven't watched the first 2 episodes yet, you should pause right now and go back and watch those 2 first. We'll wait. So far, we've learned about how God's people were expecting a king, and they were expecting him to be super strong and go into battle and defeat all of their enemies. Do you remember who the king is that God sent to his people? That's right, it was Jesus. But Jesus was a very different king than they were expecting. Jesus wasn't going to go into battle and defeat their enemies, but Jesus was even stronger than they were expecting, because Jesus was strong enough to teach the people how to love God and how to love one another. And we talked about how that takes a really strong person. Last week, we met John the Baptist. Remember him? He ate bugs. We don't hold that against him because he was doing some amazing things. He was teaching people about God and then pouring water on their head. Do you remember what that's called? That's right, baptism. So John the Baptist was teaching people about God and then he was baptizing them. He even baptized Jesus. Today, we're going to meet Jesus' disciples. That's a fancy word for the friends that followed him around to learn more about God and loving others. So let's get started learning about Jesus' disciples. Jesus was ready to begin what he had come to do. But first, he needed a special group of friends to travel with him, to help him, and to learn from him. They would be his disciples. Who would he choose? You might be surprised. Who do you think Jesus will choose to be his disciples? Simon, Andrew, James, and John were fishermen. Jesus met them down by the water one day while they were putting their fishing nets away. "Let's go fishing," Jesus said. "We've been out all night," they told him, "and we didn't catch one single fish." But because Jesus had asked them to, they dropped their nets back into the water, and straight away something amazing happened. What do you think happened? The fishermen could hardly believe their eyes. Their nets were so full that their boats began to sink. This was impossible. How had Jesus done it? They could tell there was something very different about this man. "Come with me," Jesus said. "I want you to be my disciples. I have a different job for you." So the fishermen left everything by the water and they followed Jesus. How do you think the disciples felt when their nets filled up with fish? Another day, Jesus met a tax collector called Matthew. Now, most people did not like tax collectors, not at all. Their job was to collect money from everyone, but often they took too much. Did you hear that? It's storming outside. That was thunder and it scared me just a little. Anyway, back to Matthew. So Matthew was a tax collector, and people did not like tax collectors at all because their job was to collect money from everyone, but often they took too much and they kept extra for themselves. Everyone knew that this was not fair. Matthew was a tax collector like all the others, but Jesus knew that and loved him anyway. He had something better for him. "Come with me," Jesus said, "and be my disciple." So Matthew did. How do you think Matthew felt when Jesus wanted him to be his disciple? Matthew was so happy that he threw a huge party at his house and invited Jesus and all his tax collector friends too. But not everyone was pleased about Jesus' new friends. Why was he spending time with those types of people? Because that was another big one. That was pretty loud. Because, said Jesus, these are the people who need me, the ones I have come to help. Jesus wasn't doing things the way anyone expected. He made friends with all kinds of people. He cared about everyone because they were all God's children, and he loved them. Who do you think God wants you to be friends with? Jesus chose 12 disciples. For the next few years, they would follow him wherever he went, near and far, learning, teaching, helping, and healing. Jesus' disciples weren't perfect. Sometimes they made mistakes, and sometimes they didn't understand everything that he was saying. But Jesus is forgiving and patient and can work with anyone. He had come to change the world and show God's love to everyone. And he had chosen this unusual collection of people to help him. What do you think was the coolest thing about being a disciple of Jesus? You just learned how Jesus picked his 12 friends that followed him around, learning more about God and loving others. Do you remember what they were called? That's right, disciples. Now, you might think, since Jesus was picking his friends, picking his disciples, he would have picked all the people that didn't mess up and didn't make mistakes, right? I mean, he's Jesus. He's God's son. He must want only the most perfect people to be around him all the time, right? Wrong. Every single one of the 12 disciples that Jesus picked had messed up and made mistakes and did wrong things. Every single one. And even after becoming disciples, they still messed up. And that's because everyone messes up and makes mistakes. But Jesus is loving and forgiving, and we get to follow him even when we make mistakes. The most important thing we can do after we make a mistake is to apologize and learn from it and try to do better the next time. But no matter how many times you mess up or make a mistake, God still loves you. God never loves you any less, because you are God's child and you are loved more than you will ever know. And you were made strong to love others too. Next time on Bible Stories with Miss Cortney, we'll learn how Jesus was a teacher. Bye friends, see you next time. Maybe next time there won't be a scary storm outside. Bye.